Hey everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the daily futures and cryptocurrency outlook for tomorrow's trading, tomorrow being the 21st of the month. Obviously, looking at the charts, the news that we were talking about yesterday at 1400 and 1430 did make quite a bit of a difference in terms of movement. It was a pretty slow day most of the morning, and given the reaction that we have today, with all of the stuff going on, it makes sense as to why it just seems like everybody was waiting for that to come out, and when it did, well, things went a little bit crazy. So, it should be an interesting one. We got plenty to work with, that's for sure, but before we jump on in, make sure to swing it over to slingshotfutures.com, scroll down and click on the Join the Daily Outlook newsletter. That's going to let you sign your email up on our email list so you'll be notified every time one of these videos comes out. Along with that, in the email itself, we go over different stocks and things that are going on in a bigger picture for potential opportunities there as well. So not only do you have the cryptocurrencies and the future side of things, but you also have several other markets that can pop up. So a great newsletter to be a part of if you're not already. And then if you haven't done so already, make sure to click on the live trade room subscription and trial info, and from there you can sign up for a 3-day trial in the live trade room. That way you can sit down with us for a few days, see the live trade room, you can see our screens, see the trades and the things that we're looking at doing, just how we generally approach the markets every day. It's a great way to see, what we're doing and how it all fits into place, if you will. And if you haven't checked it out yet, well, you're missing out. You have a 3-day trial waiting for you once you click that. Now, of course, if you enjoy the live trade room, you can join the live trade room solely with a subscription basis on a weekly or monthly base. Or if you join as a full-fledged VIP member, you get the live trade room as part of the package. Now, taking a look at the overall moves that we have going on right now, again, obviously there's a lot of stuff. The euro just completely hammered lower. They had a big slap up to highs, monthly resistance that was previous month's high at 825, and then it pushed right back down and just obliterated that move. Now, one interesting thing, and we're going to see this very commonly today, is if we mark this up and we look at that initial news candles move, right, that big slam lower, we can project that down, and that gives us the bottom of almost every move that happened on the news today. So very interesting to see a lot of the markets following the same mentality, or at least the same technical approach, and we're getting a lot of the same across the board here. So once we're done with the euro, there's not going to be much else to talk about on some of the other ones. They all look really close to one another, but we have a big dive lower after failing off of the monthly highs, previous monthly high that is, and then collapsing down for a full deviation move down. That major level of support's at 19,170 to 175. And then from there, we're forming a little bit of a kind of a wedge, sort of a pennant somewhere inside there, where we're not really getting a flat top, but we're pretty close, and for the most part we're just kind of wedging out. Now, this could easily transition into a range. You can see that range being put in pretty clearly, but for now we do have a little bit of a wedge, so the anticipation is that we get a breakdown and continuation down, likely to retest that major support at 19,175, and then also we have monthly support at 19,100, so just a little bit below that. If we're going to be cycling from monthly levels, why not go from monthly high to monthly support down at 19,100? Makes a lot of sense. So we do have a couple different scenarios that could play out here. We know we're bearish, that's pretty obvious, but we don't want to sell too far down. The big breakout move is already done. Likely the next move that they get are the late sellers that are going to be jumping in, looking for one more push down towards those lows, and that means that we need to be selling as conservatively as possible. The next selling area, 19,605, just above us, and I would honestly like the way that that looks with a trap high and then twin reversal right back down again would give us a very nice signal to potentially short to the downside at 19,173 with the primary objective. So if they do want to go a little bit further up, that big 1.2000 level is obviously a big location of interest, but we do have the 2050, we have weekly resistance at 2025, we have daily resistance at 2080, and 2105, so we've got a lot of stuff stacking up in the same place, lots of resistance clustered inside there, along with that big round number, so that is definitely an area of interest if they want to pop up, but for now, I'm looking more aggressively at 19,605. Over on the gold market, again, very similar situation. We cycled off of weekly resistance this time. Monthly resistance was quite a ways above us. But we did cycle off of weekly resistance and push down. And again, measuring that news candle, going from top to bottom of the news candle, projecting down, you guessed it, dead locked right on the lows at 1,300, actually 1299.5. just a full deviation once again, very similar to the euro, and actually the analysis is almost identical to the euro, where we have a very bearish market. I don't want to sell low, I want to sell a pop higher, so a nice little pop up towards 1306.9 or 10.1, depending on how aggressive they want to be, and then a reversal back down to finish off the objective on a retest at 99.5. Makes a lot of sense. So pretty straightforward there on gold, since it's almost identical to the euro. Let's move on to crude oil. Now, crude oil had its inventories today. It didn't really have much of an impact on the 1400 news, but they did move around a little bit. Now, the overall movement that we have going on, the inventories had a quick spike lower. They tried pushing down to a new low. They made it down by a tick or two and then rocketed right back up again. So it looks like buyers were just waiting for that trap low so they can buy in, and they slammed the market right back up. So with a big move right back up towards a 60-minute resistance at 51, 50.99, depending on how you want to draw it up, which cycled back down. And now we have a little bit of an interesting scenario, because zooming out, we have a strong bull trend that's been going on for a long time. We found a little bit of a pause inside of here in the range, but that bull trend, it's been a while since we've really kind of continued that move, and when they go back up to the highs, they didn't do so well, right? We have this little range forming inside here, and so far they've failed off of the top. That makes me a little bit concerned about continuation. Even though we are seeing higher lows, we're seeing the bull trend in play, they're not really doing so well in terms of continuation. And with that lack of continuation, it makes me a little bit nervous to look for too big of a move to the upside if they get one more. The one thing that does help that, though, is the fact that they have a blow off on the bottom of this little flag that formed. Likely we're going to see a correction of that on the other side. But the way that it's looking right now, 50.99, a retest of that high, maybe even a little bit lower around 50.90, might be all they're able to get if they're going to try to get a pop higher. Because right now, that failure on the highs makes me think that we may be cycling to the downside towards 50.25 in the shorter term, rather than looking for a big blow off on the top. Otherwise, though, everything looking pretty straightforward. Is still stuck in that big range that we have been for the past couple days. And now it's just a matter of who wants to show up to the party and hold it. Now, over on the S&P had a big move down as well, but they gave all of it back. We pushed all the way back up, and we're now kind of contending a potential falling resistance. We are cycling off the highs, but this is a very strong move up, and very likely this is going to continue. The next level of resistance is just above us at 25.07, but in all honesty, this looks really, really strong for potential bull breakout. And once again, the same situation that we had back here, little trap low into a new high. Now we have another trap low if we go across from that bigger low. And remember, the other levels we were talking about, those previous swing highs, those previous swing lows all coming into play, well, that news got the job done. They pushed down and hit those levels, and now we're looking for a big rally back to the upside. So likely, this has a little more bullishness in its system. So I'm looking for a little bit of a correction, not too much, maybe even to retest these intermediary range lows and then bounce back through and push up to new highs. 25.08 up to 25.10 even could be that potential rallying to the upside. So that's going to do it for the outlook for the futures. Now, in terms of the news and everything that's going on tomorrow, obviously it's not going to be as action-packed as today was, but we do still have some news going on tomorrow. Tomorrow at 2:30, out of the Japanese side of things, the Bank of Japan has their press conference going on at 2:30 tomorrow morning. So make sure to, if you are an overnight trader or you trade the Japanese session, be a little bit careful around there. It can cause things to be a little bit crazy. For the U.S. session at 8:30, we have the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index for September, forecasted 17.2. The previous was 18.9. And then we've got a big one at 9:30, right at the market open, as if they couldn't pick a better time. We have ECB President Draghi speaking right at the stock exchange open. Probably the worst timing I think they could have had, but, you know, well, we'll just have to play it by ear. But I got to be a little bit careful now with Draghi speaking right at the stock exchange open. It could cause things to be a little bit crazy. Now, for the cryptocurrencies, we've got a lot of stuff going on as well. Bitcoin is breaking out of that wedge that we've had for about a day now. They broke out of the highs of that wedge. We have a larger ascending wedge working its way up. It looks really, really good for a potential breakout pullback and then continuation. And we have that crossing zone that we were talking about yesterday. It's going to have to sit around here for a couple hours yet. It may go a little bit early because we've already had the breakout and the pullback. But for the most part, we have a breakout, a nice pullback. We have all the moving averages coming into play, the range lows coming into play. Everything is pointing to a long bounce right around that 3,900 area. So a pullback down to 3,900 could be that spark to catch an overnight bounce back to the upside. Bitcoin Cash they did have a really good rally to the upside, but they got a little overzealous, and now they're pulling back. We had that blow off on the highs, anticipating a blow off on the lows as well. About equidistant movement. That move really was from 520 up to around 550. So looking for about a $30 move on the opposite side of things once we start breaking down. So that puts us at around 460 to 450 in terms of major levels of support. Basically just kind of evening out the blow off on the highs to the blow off on the lows. Makes a lot of sense. Now, looking even more into this, we have the previous swing highs and previous swing lows all coming into play at 460. That adds even more emphasis on that 460 area for a potential bounce back up as well. But right now, looking for a little bit of bearishness, probably in the overnight session, to give us some buying pressure to push back up. Dashcoin also breaking out of the wedge and showing some pretty good momentum to the upside here. Dash is one that we've been keeping our eye on for a little while now, and mainly just due to the fact that it's similar to all of the other ones. We have a lot of wedge breakouts, and Dash is no exception. So what I would like to see here is a quick pullback down to around 334.37 or so. Maybe retest some of these previous swing highs at 57 and find some bouncing off of there to get that continuation to the upside as well. Basically following the party with all of the other markets. Over on Ethereum also a wedge breakout. I know, surprise, surprise. I would like to see the same thing as Bitcoin, honestly. We have a good bullish continuation. We'd like to see that pull back down to around 280s and then pop up towards the top there and keep that rally going back up towards 300. We've missed 300 by a couple bucks every time we've pushed higher. It would be nice to see them complete that 300, and usually when you see them front running a big level like that, 300, 200, 1,000, 500, anything like that, when they finally do get it, it usually gets a little more juice through it. So we might see a pop up to 310 if we can push through that 300. Over on Litecoin, very similar situation, but a little more bearish than some of the other markets. We have a wedge here as well, but this also could easily convert into a range. It's a very obvious range. We're just floating smack in the middle of it. We do have a wedge forming on more recent price action with a double bottom. This has not broken out, so we haven't had that breakout to the upside yet on Litecoin, and that gives us a little bit more emphasis on that range. We had that big bear drop. The buyers obviously accumulated that thing like it was candy, but then they just sort of went away. Now, this accumulation isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is a pause in the market, and it's something that we have to give a little bit of credence to, because the simple fact that, well, the other markets are catching the bullish breakout, Litecoin isn't. That may mean that Litecoin needs a little bit of a trap on the lows to get the juice that it needs to pop back up towards the highs. So I would love to see a dip underneath these previous obvious swing lows around 47 down to 46. Looks like a beautiful trapping area to punch in the market back up towards those highs and finish off that really $60 level. They've fallen short several times of 60, and once again, just like the Ethereum market, it would be nice to see it get the test and see if they can go a little further from there. Now, a couple of the oddball coins on the side here. We have Startcoin with a monster rally to the upside. They are pulling back to major levels of support. We have the previous swing high where the market paused from before. We also have the moving average coming in on price. This area is the area of major interest. We're looking at around 2,100, 2,075 in that area for potential buying pressure to push the market back up again. Major objective in this case, not so much looking for the blow off on the highs. I think that already happened. Given the amount of wick that's on the top, it looks as though the buyers probably exhausted themselves. So a buy off of this zone right here, I would much rather look at some profit taking at around 2650s, 2700s, because it makes a lot more sense in this case. I think the buyers are overdone. They're going to be looking for a much deeper pullback. I'm really looking at this as a possible bounce play back up towards those high closes to finish that job off. And then from there, maybe we transition into a range. And then finally, XWC, Litecoin has been having another really strong rally to the upside. Not as strong as like we saw on Internet of People, IOP like we were talking about yesterday, or on Startcoin like we were just looking at. But it is still a very strong rally to the upside. One thing that remains true, the last time they blew off these highs, it pulled back quite a bit, about 60% of the move, right? Measuring from the lows to the highs here, they pulled back a good 60, maybe even 65% of that move, and then popped up to a new high. We have now once again pushed into a new high, measuring from those most recent lows to those new highs. That would be an anticipated pullback of around 750. So if we can get a pullback of around 750, that would be a beautiful area for another attempt at the highs. Once again, the highs aren't showing a lot of strength, so I'm not looking for a monster blow-off and then a $1,000 run or something like that. I'm not looking for that. What I would rather see is a pullback down to that 750, get a bounce off of it and push back up towards around 1,000, and then call it quits from there. Maybe they blow off of the highs, maybe not. I'm not going to be sticking around to see if they do or not. But overall, Litecoin is poised for a pullback, and I am definitely looking for that pullback at around the 750 mark. So that's going to do it for the outlook on the cryptos and the futures markets. Very interesting scenarios that we have playing out in front of us. And a lot of them, you know, they're looking really good. It's just a matter of where they want to hit the gas pedal and where they don't. And right now, I think a lot of them are just kind of on the waiting list. We'll have to wait and see, but it doesn't matter what market you approach, any market that you plan on trading, make a plan, trade that plan, follow those rules, and you'll be A-okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.